So in today's session, we are going to discuss about triggers, and we are going to discuss what exactly a trigger and what is the use. Why should we go for triggers in Apex programming especially? What kind of operations that we can do with the help of triggers? And how can we prepare the triggers? What is the syntax we used to follow to prepare the triggers? And upon creating the triggers, what are the various ways that we have in Salesforce? How many ways are available to create a trigger? And what are the various events on which we can fire the triggers? So as part of Apex programming, we have 7 events are available on which we can fire the triggers. What are those 7 events? In what situations which event should be useful? We'll see. And then we'll see how can we create the triggers in Salesforce and how to deactivate the trigger, how can we delete the triggers, and how many types of triggers are available in Salesforce, what are those types, and once the triggers has been getting prepared, how can we divide the business logics to various small blocks by using trigger context variables. And here we have total 12 trigger context variables are available. What are those 12 trigger context variables and how can we use them? And then we'll see the trigger bulkification, how to make the trigger bulkified, and how to implement the triggers. We'll see with practical use cases, simple use cases, complex use cases, database operations, SOQL queries, DML statements, and everything. And upon preparing the triggers, how can we maintain the trigger handler factory that is also called as trigger action framework, that is also called as logicless triggers. And upon preparing the triggers, what exactly a recursive trigger and how to avoid this kind of recursive problem, what best practices we used to follow upon writing the trigger code, and what is the order of execution inside our Salesforce R. We'll see all these functionalities as part of triggers. So it's a bit lengthy topic here. It will take 5 to 6 sessions completely. And then from the 6 sessions, first 3 sessions are completely theoretical, purely theory concepts here. If you know these theory concepts, then you can prepare the triggers very easily. Okay. Now, so let's see what exactly a trigger, what it indicates. Now, suppose for example, I'm preparing an Apex class. I'm preparing an Apex class, public class, some messaging helper, public class, messaging helper. Inside this class, I'm preparing a method, public static void send email to lead. Send email to lead. Inside this method, I'm writing the business logic. I am writing the business logic to send email alert. In order to send the email notifications, I'm writing some piece of code. Okay. I'm writing some business logics to send the email notification. So now this is a piece of code which we have prepared. I have prepared a class. Inside the class, I'm preparing a method. In this method, we are writing some business logic. So now tell me, once the business logic has been getting prepared, when this business logic is executed, if you call this method, whenever we are calling this method, then only the business logic will be executed. Then how to call this method? We can go to the execute anonymous window here. We can go to execute anonymous window. We can go to the execute anonymous window. And inside this execute anonymous window, we need to invoke the method. How? By using messaging helper dot send email to lead. I'm invoking this method here. So now here in this case, we need to invoke this method manually. We need to go to that execute anonymous window. From the execute anonymous window, we are invoking the method by using class name dot method. Okay, with the help of class name dot method name, we are going to be invoking this business logic here. So now here in this case, what will happen? Whenever we are invoking this method by using class name dot method name, then only the method will be executed. Inside the method, whatever the logic that you are written, this logic will be executed. It will send the email notifications. Okay. So once we are preparing the business logic in the form of class and the methods, we need to invoke those classes manually. Okay, we need to invoke these classes manually. But now my requirement is I don't want to invoke this business logic manually by my own. So now I'm having my lead object. I have my lead object. Inside this lead object, whenever I'm inserting a new record, whenever I'm inserting a new lead record, immediately I want to invoke this business logic. When I want to execute this business logic, upon inserting the lead record, when after inserting, once a lead record has been inserted here, then I want to execute this business logic, which will send the email notification to that lead person automatically. So in this case here, we are going to sending the email notification to the people, and then we are executing this business logic based on some DML operation. Based on the insert operation, I want to execute. Automatically, I will create some account lead records in my lead object. How? You can use any mechanism. You can use the help of page layout also. You can use the help of Apex programming also. You can use the help of data loader also. Anything you can use. By using that any mechanism, once a lead record has been created inside the object, immediately I want to execute this business logic. It has to send the email notification to the people. So based on some DML operations, I want to execute some business logic automatically. In this case, if you want to execute this business logic based on some DML events, then we can go with the help of a feature called as triggers. Then we can use the help of triggers. Now, like for example, whenever we are depositing some money, once some money has been deposited into your account, it has been credited, automatically you are getting some alerts. You are getting one SMS alert, email alert. Whenever we are withdrawing the money, that means debiting. In that case, also you are getting some email notifications. You are getting SMS notifications. And then, whenever we are going to be reserving a movie ticket, you are getting some notifications. SMS alert, mobile alert, email alert both. Whenever we are reserving a travel ticket, you are getting SMS alert, email alert both. So in that case, you are getting these kind of notifications. How? Because of triggers. So when coming to the trigger, what we can say, trigger is nothing but the custom Apex code. This is a business logic. This is Apex code which we have prepared, which we are executing when based on some DML operations. Based on some DML events, we are executing some business logic. In this case, we can use the help of triggers. So triggers are nothing but the custom Apex code. Okay, triggers are nothing but the custom Apex code which will execute automatically based on some DML events. Based on some DML operations inside your Salesforce object records, the trigger will fire, it will perform the respective operations by executing the business logic whatever we have prepared. Now, in the entry point of view, they will try to confuse you. I want to find the trigger based on some time. Say confidently, triggers will always firing based on DML operations only. Either upon inserting the record, updating the record, deleting the record, and deleting the record, triggers will fire. Not based on time. Say confidently to them here, boss, triggers we can't fire based on time. There is no such options at all. Triggers are always firing based on DML operations. And what DML operation you want to fire, that we can decide. Either insertion, updation, deletion, and deletion that we can control. Based on our requirement, we will execute. So that here simply we can say triggers are nothing but the custom business logics which will get fired automatically based on some DML events. Now, by using these triggers, what we can do with the help of these triggers, we can able to perform the required operations. We can implement our own custom validations. We can implement complex validations also. We can implement deduplication mechanisms also. Okay, we can implement deduplication mechanisms also. That means duplication elimination mechanisms we can implement with the help of triggers. Now, in this case here, okay, in this case, you can raise the question, sir, by using trigger, can we do some complex operations? Yes, any complex operation we can do with the help of triggers. With the help of triggers, we can implement your own custom business logics, complex business logics, complex transactional flows also we can implement through with the help of triggers. So, whatever the functionalities you want to automate, whatever the business logics you want to execute, we can write inside that okay trigger that will be firing automatically based on that DML event. Now, so in that case here you can raise a question, sir, I'm preparing this a trigger code. That means this is a business logic to send the email notification. I want to find this logic when after inserting a record. In which object? Lead object only. Because in my Salesforce arc, so many objects are available, including standard, including custom. Now, when you want to file, whenever I'm inserting a record in my lead object only, that means what? Upon creating a trigger, we need to okay, bind the trigger to be associated with an object. That means each trigger should be associated with an object. So based on DML operation, that means upon inserting the record in which object? In so and so object, in lead object. So whenever we are inserting a record inside the lead object, the trigger should get fired automatically. So that here each trigger should be associated with an object. But on a single object, we can create n number of triggers. No limitations at all. Only limitation is your Apex characters limitation. 60 lakhs characters is the limitation, except that we don't have any limitations. Now, sometimes in the interview point of view, they will try to confuse you. Can we create a trigger to be related to two objects here? No. Trigger should be always associated with only one object at a time here. So each trigger should be associated with one object, but on one object we can create multiple triggers also over here. Please remember the points here. Because in the entry point of view, 70% of the development questions will be focusing on triggers. 100% common because most of your projects business logic will be available inside the trigger so that more chances are available to focus more questions on triggers topic here. That's what I'm focusing more on this now in this case here. So now here you can raise a question, sir, in Salesforce we are having so many automation features like validations which will be firing on before insertion, before updation. We have roll up summary after insertion, after updation. We have sharing rules after insertion, after updation. We have formulas after insertion, after updation. But when coming to the triggers, triggers are having the capabilities on firing both before, after also both. But trigger can fire, okay, on both before performing the DML operation and after performing the DML operation also. In both the cases, my trigger can fire. That is a specialty of triggers. So that here, by using these triggers, we can able to implement some complex business logics, which can be including SOQL queries, the DML statements, everything. Upon implementing the complex business logics, we can include the help of SOQL queries also. We can use the DML statements also inside the trigger logic. That facility is available as part of your triggers. Then, how can we create the triggers? What is the syntax we used to follow? Now, let me show you the syntax here. We'll see how to prepare. Let me explain. Sorry, these are not functions. Okay, these are not functions over here. So now these are the features, these are the automation rules which will fire automatically here. If it is a function, we have to call it. If it is a procedure, we have to call manually. But triggers, you no need to call here. You no need to execute. That will executing automatically based on some DML events. So that we can say triggers are automation processes. That's what I told you here. Triggers are not queries. Inside the trigger, we are writing the logic. In that logic, you can use queries also. Invocable queries. Triggers are simply automation tools. Like as your roll-up summary, like as your formula, like as your validation. Triggers are also such kind of automation tools. Because those are validations and roll-up summary, those are already given by Salesforce. But these are our own automation tools which we are creating by our own based on our business needs. Okay? No, we don't have this kind of features here. Okay. In Java programming language, we don't have this kind of automation tools. Okay. If you know database of concepts, Oracle or SQL Server, SQL Server. In SQL Server, do you know PLSQL concept? You know. Only SQL concepts you know. When you go to the PLSQL, there you will be having okay, sub procedures. You are having functions. You are having synonyms. You are having the triggers also. Okay, in database concept, it may be Oracle or SQL Server. There also we have triggers because as of now we have prepared procedures and functions. Those we need to invoke manually by using class name dot method name or object name dot procedure name here. But these we no need to execute manually; these will execute automatically. So in order to make certain things automated, we are using triggers. Okay, make a note of this one. Triggers. Trigger is nothing but the custom Apex code. Trigger is nothing but the custom Apex code which will get executed automatically based on certain DML events. That is, while performing the DML operations on the object records, triggers will get fired automatically. Now, triggers are the automated processes which will always find based on DML events. Based on DML events. By using triggers, we can implement the custom validations, complex validations, and deduplication mechanism. Triggers allows us to implement the complex business logics and complex transactional flows in the applications. While creating a trigger, each trigger should be associated with an object. But an object can have one or more triggers. An object can have one or more triggers. Now, triggers can get fired on both before and after performing the DML operations on the object records. Now the syntax. Trigger, trigger name on object name, and here we can specify DML events list. For example, trigger, accounts trigger, and account object. Here we can specify DML events list. Here we can write the business logic. Trigger, opportunity trigger, and opportunity object. We can specify DML events list. You can write the business logic. Trigger, positions trigger, and position object. We can specify DML events list. Trigger, branch trigger, and branch object. DML events list. Write the business logic. Then up to the syntax part. Then firing means here executing. Executing.
Hello, sir. I have a doubt here. So this DML events list, so it can be insert, update, etc., right?
I will come to that point. I will come to that point.
Okay, okay,
Okay, I will come. That is the next part. What events
okay,
are available?
okay, okay.
I will come to that DML events concept. That is the next part. Okay. Now, so now here in this case, we are going to preparing the triggers by using this syntax. Upon preparing the trigger, we have to use the keyword trigger to indicate that I am creating a trigger. Here we can give the name on which, okay, to specify to which name you would like to use the trigger. Better as a best practice, upon giving the trigger name, please include your object name also. So why? Because is just by looking into the name itself, we can understand this trigger is belongs to so and so object. Okay, but it's not a rule; it's a best practice we used to follow in real time. So please include your object name also inside the trigger name so that you can understand this is a trigger which has been created on the object opportunity. And then specify the keyword on object name. That means I'm creating a trigger with this particular name on this particular object which will get fired on this particular events over here. Whenever it is firing on these events, this is a business logic it has to execute. Now, in this case here, whenever we are creating a trigger, each trigger code should get stored inside a file. Every trigger code gets stored inside a file. So now each trigger code should be get stored inside a file with the extension .apxt. Each trigger code should get stored inside a file with the extension .apxt. Suppose if it is a class, it is storing the extension .apxc, but a trigger will be apxt. Okay, apex trigger. Each trigger code will store inside the file with the extension .apxt, and whatever the triggers you are creating inside your Salesforce are, all the triggers information will store inside an object called as Apex trigger object. Apex trigger is a standard object in Salesforce in which all the triggers information will get resides. So whatever the triggers that we are going to configure, all the triggers information will store inside an object, Apex trigger object. That is a fundamental rule. Okay. Now, in this case, let's see here how can we create the triggers also. Now make a note of this one. Each trigger code should get resides inside the file with the extension .apxt. All the Apex triggers information will get stored inside the Apex trigger object. Apex trigger is a standard object in Salesforce in which all the triggers information will get resides. Done with this? Now, let's see. So now here, the most curious point now, DML events. Okay. So now here, people are eagerly waiting, sir, what is DML events list? Okay, why we are mentioning like this? Now let's come to that point here, trigger events. So now here in this case, we are creating triggers, which will be firing automatically here. So now we need to indicate triggering point here. Triggering point means what? When it has to be get fired. Suppose if it is an Apex class method, we need to invoke manually by visiting execute anonymous window by calling them with the help of class name dot method name if it is a static. Until or unless you are not calling manually, it won't fire. But here, when coming to the triggers, these are having the capability to fire based on some events. So based on some automated points, it will be getting fired. These are called as triggering points here. Then what are the various events that we have in Salesforce which we can use to fire our triggers? So now tell me in this case, what do you mean by an event generally? Event indicates what? Event is nothing but now. Event in the sense an occasion or a situation on which we can perform certain operations. Suppose for example, assume that. So now assume that on this Tuesday, next coming Tuesday, we are having a festival. Okay, a festival is available here. So now look at some Ugadi festival here. Okay, it's the first festival for the Hindu people over here. So now here in this case, on the occasion of that festival, they're performing some activities. They will go to the temple also. They will do some puja also. They will be having some activities here. When on that particular day, at morning time, not afternoon, not evening, morning time, they would like to do some activities here. So now we are indicating that occasion. We are indicating that event here. So here also, event indicates the occasion or situation on which you would like to fire the trigger. Because triggers are firing automatically. When you want to fire, that will be indicating by these trigger events. So trigger event indicates when the trigger has to be get fired. Firing means what? Executing. Okay, calling. Okay, executing. So now here in this case, triggers are going to firing based on some DML events. As part of your Apex programming, Salesforce has given 7 events. Salesforce has given total 7 events on which we can able to fire the trigger. Then what are those 7 events? Now let me list out one by one here. Now let's see. Event indicates an occasion or situation on which the trigger is getting fired. Apex provides the below 7 events on which we can fire the triggers as below. First event is before insert. Second one before update. Third one before delete. Fourth one after insert. Fifth one after update. Sixth one after delete. Seventh one after undo. These are the 7 events on which my trigger will get fired. Now, we can fire a trigger on one or more DML events. We can fire a trigger on one or more DML events. The trigger is not only firing based on one single event, we can fire it on multiple events also by separating a comma. So now we will see each and every event one by one here. What each event indicates. When we will use each and every event, we'll see each and every functionality in detail. We're digging into the concept now. Done with this? Now let's see each and every event one by one. First event is before insert. Basically, these are the triggering points. Triggering points are means what? When the trigger should get fired, when that logic should get executed, that will be indicating by these events. Now, before insert. Now tell me, what did you understood with this event name before insert? Okay,
The
before
trigger
inserting the
should
record, what
execute
it will
before.
do? Right. Now, so now upon creating the trigger, suppose for example, I'm creating a trigger over here. For example, I'm creating a trigger. For this trigger, I'm giving this event over here. Then what it means? Before inserting the record in which object? Branch object. Then what it will do? It will fire this trigger, it will perform this operation. That means this business logic will be executed before inserting the record inside this ID, this branch object. That is the meaning of this. Okay. So now, upon preparing the trigger, we have to indicate this when the trigger has to be fired. Okay, if it is a normal method, we will invoke manually here. Then this is automated functionality. When it has to find that we need to indicate by using this okay event. So now in this case, before insert event will fire the trigger on before inserting a record inside your object. Not after insertion, not before updation, only on before insertion will fire that. Okay. So as part of this trigger events, we have total 7 events are available like before insertion, before update, before delete, after insert, after update, after delete, after undelete. Okay. So now in this case, we can able to fire a trigger based on multiple events also. But now this trigger is firing when on before insert. Suppose if you want to fire on after insert also, we can make a comma over here. We can specify after insert. That means before inserting the record inside my branch object, my trigger will fire. It will execute some business logic. After inserting the record also inside this object over here, the trigger will fire, it will execute the business logic again. Then we can write, and before insertion what logic you want to execute, we can write it over here, and after insertion what logic you want to write, we can write it over here. Multiple events logics we can write within a single trigger. Okay, understood the concept here? Here there is a point here. We can raise a question. Sir, I'm writing the business logic inside the trigger. Then before inserting the record, my trigger will fire. It will execute the logic. Then how the trigger will know which piece of code, which logic should be executed on before insertion, which logic should be executed on after insertion? How the trigger will know that? We have to indicate. For that one, we have a feature called as context variables over here. Okay, through context variables we can indicate, boss, please execute this piece of code on before insertion, execute this piece of code on after insertion. We need to indicate. Okay, now sorry, no, while inserting means what? Before insertion only here. No, 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 it won't do. Okay, now, so now here in this case here, now, as part of this triggers, we can able to fire a trigger on one or more DML events also. That's what I have given this point here. We can fire a trigger on one or more DML events. Here we can separate by using this comma over here. All the 7 events also we can write by separating commas also. That facility is available. No restrictions that a trigger can fire on only 2 events or 3 events, not like that. All the 7 events also we can write. Now, so now here let's see. Make a note of this one. This event will get fired the trigger. This event will fire the trigger on before inserting the record inside the object. So before inserting the record inside the object, it will fire the trigger. Now tell me, on what kind of situations we can go with this before insert event? Before inserting the record inside the object, generally what kind of operations will you do? Email notifications will be sending when after insertion. Generally, in what kind of situations we can use this event before insert? Now, so basically, before insert event will be getting used upon implementing custom validations. Whenever we are validating the data, when the validations has to be get done before insertion, like whenever we are entering into a movie theater, before entering into the movie theater at the entry gate, okay, the person will be asking you where is your ticket. If you show the ticket, then only he will allow you to enter into that. Whenever we are going for a supermarket or shopping mall, at the entry gate there is a security personnel. He will stop you at the entry gate before insertion, before entering into the shopping mall. He will cross check you where first whether do you have any unwanted items along with you or not. So in this case, validation should be always done on before insertion. Validation should be always done on before insertion. So before inserting the record, we can able to verify that validations also. Next, second one, deduplication mechanisms. I will give the note points also. Don't worry. Deduplication mechanism. That means what? Duplication elimination mechanism. When we need to verify, when we try to insert a record, before inserting the record itself, I would like to check with this details already a record is exist or not. If exists, I want to show the message box duplicate record found, so this cannot be acceptable. So cancel this operation. Suppose if the record is not available with these details, then we can able to accept that record as it is inside the update. So, okay, whenever we are implementing this duplication mechanism, then we can use the help of this event before insertion. Next, third one. Third one here, we can verify the profile level permissions. That already we know each and every user should be associated with a profile. Then whenever we are inserting the record, we can check whether user is having the permission to insert the records or not. That means we can verify profile level permissions, object level permissions, field level permissions also we can able to verify and before insertion itself. So in the interview point of view, generally this is not part of this one. Okay, this is a interview point of view question over here. And what kind of situations will you use before insert event? Then you can explain here. So upon doing the validations, upon implementing this deduplication mechanism, upon implementing that validating the profile permissions, object permissions, field permission, we can go with the help of before insert event. Okay, now make a note of this one. We can implement custom validations. We can implement the deduplication mechanism. We can verify the profile level, object level, and field level permissions. Like that, etc. we can able to implement. Event indicates. Second event, before update. That means what? What this event indicates. Hmm. What this event will do? This event will fire the trigger on before updating the record. So before updating the record inside the object, this event will fire the trigger. So now before updation of the record, whatever the operations you want to do, you can write that operations related code inside this trigger. Okay? Understood the concept here? Now, let's see. This event will fire the trigger and before updating the record inside the object. For example, trigger accounts trigger and account object before update. Write the business logic. Then here also almost we can do the same permissions. That means same operations. Like we can implement our own custom validations also. We can implement deduplication mechanisms also. We can verify the profile level permissions, object level permissions, and field level permissions. All these things we can able to do that. Done with this? Next, before delete event. What do you mean by this one? What this event will do? This event will fire the trigger on before deleting a record from the object. Okay, whenever you are trying to be deleting the record from the object, before deletion of the record, if you want to do certain operations, then we can able to do with the help of before delete trigger. So now tell me in what kind of situations we can use this. Can you give me some scenarios? Delete any record means what? Unnecessary records we need to delete manually only. Then what is the use of this automation then? Duplicate records we can't do here. Duplication should be done always on before insertion, before updations only. Okay. Hmm. Now, suppose for example, I'm deleting an account record here. Just we will go to the record detail page, click on delete button. Okay, when you click on delete, record will be deleted. But my requirement is whenever we are trying to be deleting the record from the object, if the account records active status equals to yes, okay, active underscore underscore C field value. If it is yes, that means what customer is active customer. If he is an active customer, then he is our valuable customer. He is our asset. So I don't want to allow the users to delete that record here. So now, before deleting the record, I want to check what is that active status of the field. If it is yes, then we can show the error message, boss. This is an active customer record. You don't have the rights to delete this one. So before deleting that record, if you want to prevent some records deletion based on certain conditions, we can do that. That is one case. Second one, for example, I have two objects. Okay, I have two objects. Hiring manager object, position object. Both are having some relation. What kind of relation? Lookup relation here. Now tell me in lookup association, when I delete the parent record, what about the related childs? Childs also deleted? No, childs will be existed as it is here. That is a functionality of lookup. But my requirement is upon deleting the parent, child also I want to delete over here. Then generally this functionality is available where master detail. But I don't want to change the master detail association here. Relationship I don't want to change, but I want this behavior over here. Okay, I want this additional behavior. In this case, before deleting that parent record, if you want to delete some related child records also which are having lookup association, then we can go with the help of before delete event as well. Okay, understood the concept here? These are two scenarios. Now make a note of this one. This event will fire the trigger and before deleting the record from the object. This event will fire the trigger and before deleting the record from the object. For example, trigger, accounts trigger, and account object before delete. Write the business logic inside this. We can prevent the deletion of records based on certain conditions. Second one, we can remove the related child records from the child object. Child object upon removing the parent record. And then we can verify the profile level permissions, object level permissions, record level permissions. That means we can check whether the user is having the permission to delete the record from that object or not. This record is inserted, trigger on after inserting a record inside the object. Once a record is inserted, generally what kind of operations we can do? We can send some email notification to the people also. We can create some child records also. We can share the record to the people also. We can transfer the record ownership to the people also here. Okay, we can update the roll up summary fields also. We can do all these things. Okay, like whenever we are adding a child, roll up summary field value will be 1. Okay, So now suppose if I'm adding second child, roll up summary value will be 2. That means 2 childs are available. So it will be incrementing automatically like that here. Okay. This event will fire the trigger and after inserting the record inside the object. Trigger accounts trigger an account object which will be having after inserting. We can write the business logic like we can send the email alert to the users. We can create the related child records. We can share the record to the required user dynamically. We can transfer the record ownership to the required user. We can update the roll-up summary value based on the need. Like that here we can perform that respective operations. Done with this? Now, so these are few events here. We have few more events are available. We'll see in tomorrow's session. Tomorrow we have the class as usual here. Okay. Tomorrow we'll see the remaining events and then we'll see the concept of types of triggers, how to create the triggers, how to deactivate, how to delete, and then we'll see the concept of trigger context variables tomorrow here. Okay. Now, thank you.